Violent crime is raging unchecked through our cities, as you know, forcing companies to take unprecedented steps to protect their customers and their own workers. Starbucks, for example, now providing barristers with active shooter training as murders, rapes, robberies surge nationwide. The dramatic step by Starbucks comes after the coffee giant forced to close 16 of their stores over safety concerns. And 7-Eleven now urging all Los Angeles locations to shut down at night to allow police to investigate a string of deadly robberies. Meanwhile, crime victims are being tossed to the curb in L.A. as hyper-liberal DA George Gascon disbands the unit that notifies crime victims about parole hearings that might be releasing their attackers. Gascon defending his decision to kill the hearings, saying, quote, "While a victim has a right to be notified, they also have a right not to be contacted." Say what? What does that mean, Judge?
It means he's a fool.
It means that he is, to save a couple of dollars, he is taking away a sacred right of crime victims to be notified.
You attribute to him a good motivation. It's not about saving money. It's about endangering victims and benefiting the criminal. This lifer unit, as they call it in California, I mean, every DA has it. What you do is you prosecute people. They go to state prison. If they're up for parole, what you do is the prosecutor, and I would send my prosecutors out, they go to Albany in New York, and then they would argue before the parole board as to whether or not that person needs to come out. We would often call the family members who are traumatized by this, if the victim is deceased. And we end up calling other people so that the parole board knows that there are people still afraid. Now, understand, this nonsense, they have a right not to be notified. He's full of it. The law requires him, and that's why they have a right to be notified. You know why we have that law? Because when these dirtbags get out of prison, they come after the family members. They come after the people who've testified against them. They come after the families that were in court every day on behalf of the victim. And those victims' families are in danger. An order of protection is nothing but a piece of paper. It's not going to save them. So the least thing that we can do is to give them notice that this person is coming out. This man is incapable of running a DA's office. In fact, he shouldn't be allowed in the DA's office.
Well, we'll see what happens with the recall there. Katie, you have Starbucks. It's so ironic, the epitome of lightness and sweetness and modernity. And now they're teaching, shooter training. I mean, how bitterly ironic is that?
Well, the fact that they're having to close all of these stores in these cities just proves that the criminals are running the show. When you have to start leaving a number of locations because it's unsafe for your workers to be there. And who suffers the most, right? It's the people who are trying to make an honest living by going to work at Starbucks, by going to work at these other stores we've seen across the country leaving town. And when one part of the system, which in the LA case or in the DC case, and as we saw in San Francisco and we're seeing in Philadelphia, if one part of the system is broken, meaning the DA is not prosecuting, the cop's job then is basically just to run cleanup because the criminals are running free. I remember being in Times Square 6 months ago in the convenience store in the Walgreens, and these guys just came in and put stuff under their jackets and walked out. And we walk out, and there are police there. But the workers can't put themselves into a dangerous position by trying to stop them. They don't know if they're armed. They don't have the liability. And that's the other thing these companies are under the hook for, too, is that if someone gets hurt or killed in their store, they may be liable for it, given that there's no deterrence in these neighborhoods to the criminals who are absolutely in control.
You know, Greg, it reminds me of the Freddie Gray riots in Baltimore. What happened? They closed the big Rite Aid, the only one that serviced that neighborhood on the west side of Baltimore. It seems to me the 7-Elevens closing in all the inner cities, what's happening is that the residents of the community are being denied and deprived a vital service. What if they need a quart of milk at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, Greg?
That's always been the issue with a lot of these, I would say, elites like Gascon and others, is that they don't go to 7-Eleven, and they have their employees handle the Starbucks run. So they don't. This is not something that directly affects them, and until it does directly affect them, they continue this way. I'm going to defend Gascon, though. He has got a tough job. He's let out so many thugs and scumbags. Consider the phone bill, having to call all their victims. I mean, that could take days to do that.
But that's what's happening.
I know, that's my joke. But I can safely bet that most of the victims are women. So this is another case of where are the feminist groups? Why aren't they speaking up? And then his excuse. He said that the parole notification He used the word triggering, which
Yeah.
again is ironic. But this is another case where they are so obsessed with these BS woke jargon words instead of authentic action, as if this is like, I'm really worried that me calling you might hurt your feelings. Yeah, but he's going to come and kill me.
Right.
So it's like you're replacing a real concern with a fake concern, and you're telling them you can't handle the truth. We're not going to tell you. It's crazy. This is a dystopian nightmare.
He's lying. Oh, go ahead, Joseph.
Wait, it's okay.
I am not lying.
No, Gascon is lying.
In terms of Starbucks, can you imagine what shooter training would look like? Well, how would you feel if there was a Starbucks barista and he's packing
Well, they're not
with a
letting them
holster?
harm themselves. They're just teaching them to run away.
Yeah, they're doing duck and cover behind the espresso
Throw
machine.
hot coffee. That's what you do.
That's actually a really good idea.
You know where that was from? Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Remember he stopped the robbery?
Coffee to the face.
Yes.
Or to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh.
Meaning?
Geraldo, of all people, you know exactly what I mean. So they don't put Starbucks where the gang activity is. They usually put it in commercial districts
Yeah, right.
where there's nice foot traffic, where these yuppies can go and plug in their laptops and text and Zoom mom and ask dad for money, and where people just waste their days and kick up their feet and do what they do. It's like people spend all day there if you're under
about the
30.
bathrooms.
And now their bathroom policy just got buckled because they opened it up to everybody because they got a bad headline, and people started selling drugs and living in the bathrooms. So they had to back down on that. So the fact that Starbucks is now under assault means the crime is coming from where crime usually is to places where it's usually not. And that's where these very liberal, woke people don't want to be disturbed. And we talked about how the Democratic Party is changing. And if the Democrats can't get Starbucks without getting stuck up, that is probably the line that they can't cross.
I totally agree, except I wonder, is it just a coincidence that most of the Starbucks that are being closed are the Starbucks where there are moves to unionize? Because that is a fact.
I mean,
that of the 16 Starbucks closed,
Was that in the research
more than
back
half of
then?
them, yes,
are
unionized.
The Starbucks in Union Station is a dangerous place. And Union Station used to be a beautiful place in Washington, D.C.
yeah,
It's not because they're getting
I haven't been there,
unionized.
and it's gotten bad.
It's pretty bad. It's not a safe,
Beautiful
not
building.
the safest place.
Washington is pretty bad overall.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.